Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Get ready, pal.
Here's your host, Randy Tobler.
Close but no cigar. Randy and Stephanie off today. Hannah's here. I'm John Marsh. Brian Hauswirth in and with us to do a little co-hosting on this busy week in Missouri politics. Cole County State Representative Dave Griffith. Griff, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Who better to have on than a politician, right?
Yeah, well, we've got Blaine Luetkemeyer waiting in the wings.
Oh, good.
We're going to check in with Scott Faughn at 7:05 to see what's cooking in his world because, man, oh, man, we were kind of not jokingly said this could be one of the most important, busiest weeks in Missouri politics, literally, since Eric Greitens resigned.
It really is. And I go back to, the days when Mike Kehoe ran for Senate and the number of in that primary, 5 people in that primary, and a whole lot of talk that was going around that. And so in each race that we've got that around the state of Missouri, we've got multiple candidates. Most of them qualified for what they're going to be doing. But so the Missourians have got a lot of choices to make tomorrow.
See, this is my first time kind of being involved in such a cutthroat primary process. The polls, I think, are getting tighter and tighter as time goes on. And I'm just wondering, is it always like this?
Well, it is kind of this way, and I agree. I disagree with that a lot. I know there are a lot of analysts that are out there that say, negative politics works, but for the people that I talk to, most of the people I talk to don't like it, but it's just, I guess that's the way it is.
Well, it's one of those kind of deals, too, and we've joked on air about apparently everybody running for every office had a dog in the hunt selling Missouri farmland to the Chinese. I don't care who you were. According to your opponent, you were the guy that did it.
Well, and I think you go back, and that really goes back to research and going back to figuring out why that was and why that vote came the way it was. And it really came down to Missouri jobs. And a lot of what was happening in northwest Missouri was Anderson Farms. And I think that a lot of that gets lost in the mix. But you also do your research in Google to find out just exactly how much land that the Chinese own in the state of Missouri. Is a fraction of what we have. So is it right? Probably not, but it is what it is, and I think that we kept jobs in Missouri, and that's important too.
Well, we think of Smithfield Foods, and that's the one that's been zeroed in on as the wholly Chinese-owned company now. But, I mean, you think about all the big ag producers with the Cargills and the Tysons, and, you can go on to ConAgra. You can go on and name them. They've got plants here in Missouri, and a lot of times, more often than not, we have outside the U.S. interests involved in being the money men on those companies.
And I think you look what the benefits are, and I think a lot of those, and of course, Missouri is known as our number one industry in the state of Missouri, and what we do in feeding the world. And I think that a lot of that has to do with who we have doing that for us. And I remember the big animal group that we had over around in St. Louis, how many jobs that was going to bring in and how much beef that was going to bring to the state of Missouri and as well. So there are pluses and minuses in almost everything we have in life, and I think that we've got to do our research and find out exactly how that benefits us.
Dave, would be remiss if we didn't talk about what's happening with the Japanese stock market and the potential spinoff Wall Street. They were saying it was Tokyo, the Nikkei, lost 4,451 points, its largest drop in history, and the index closed more than 12% down. And the spinoff on this side of the pond is people talking much more seriously about a potential recession.
Well, I think we're going to find this morning when the stocks open what effect that's going to have on us. And I guess my question is why? Why would it have that such a big jump or drop all of a sudden? Do we have markers that were telling us that was going to happen? I haven't read the story, John, so I'm not really up on it.
Oh, we're watching the value of the yen that was boosted against the dollar, and then all the spin-offs that factor into that, I think, especially with the Fed was talking, if we get down to that 2% mark on inflation, that maybe as early as September they could roll back some interest rates. But they've been so, I don't know, wishy-washy is the right word, but they haven't taken a real definite position, at least the chairman hasn't, and they just keep taking this wait-and-see approach. And I think for a lot of people out there, especially on the long-term investors and all, they have some valid fears.
I wonder what to take our presidential candidates are going to take on that as well.
It's going to be very interesting to see where that one goes.
Probably not a great day to check on your 401k or anything like that, right?
Might be an uphill battle, too. Maybe you devalue what you owe in student loans, though, maybe as a positive spin-off side.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, Dave, we've been watching, like you brought up, the governor's race and all, and how tight these races are. I mean, it's been since the end of July pretty much a virtual dead heat with the two front runners, which Lieutenant Governor Keogh and Secretary of State Ashcroft, and Bill Eigel back there in the upper teens is the three folks leading, at least on the GOP side. And the presumption is the GOP winner will be the one to beat.
Correct. By
the Dems when we get to the general. What's your prediction on the governor's race? What do you think's going to happen there?
Well, I think one of the things that I've told people all along is that I don't know that anybody is going to outwork Mike Keogh. Mike Keogh, for the longest time, we saw that in the Senate race when he ran back then, that the names that were on that ballot were well-known names around the state and around mid-Missouri. But he was out there like he is now, out there knocking doors and meeting people and talking with them. And I think that Jay is. I'm not sure what happened with Jay. I think maybe Jay took off a little bit later than what he had planned. Maybe that was the strategy that he had, to wait until the very end to make a big push. But the name Ashcroft is one that's known throughout the state of Missouri, so that's a plus for him. One thing I think that Mike Keogh has done over the past 87 days or so that he's been on the bus trail, I think that his name has gotten out there. My wife and I travel down to Joplin regularly here the past few months because of her brother, and seeing the signs that we see down there. Of course, you ask Carol McDowell, signs don't win a race, but I think the signs are a pretty good indicator of the kind of support that you have. And I think that I've been able to see that throughout the entire state of Missouri. In Kansas City, I haven't been to St. Louis so much, but I know in Kansas City there's an awful lot of Keogh signs that are there. I think it's going to be a very close race, but I really see Keogh coming out on top, mainly because of the amount of work that he's put into it.
Dave Griffith, our state representative, Cole County, joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Randy and Stephanie are off, and Brian Hauswirth, Hannah Long. I'm John Marsh.
It's Super Bowl week.
It is. That's probably right on the money, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly for us in the biz, we talk a lot with politicians and other folks who work in the political world. Everyone is tired. Everyone is ready for Wednesday and to take a long nap, I think.
And that's really the sentiment that I've heard, Hannah, is that I sure will be glad when August 6th is over with so we can get all this done and we can stop hearing all the negative stuff that's going on. Yeah, and really in my life, and I think in all of our lives, we see there's an awful lot of negative that happens in the world, and the less we can add to that, the better for me, and I think the better for society in general. We talk about the governor's race. We talk about the Congress, the race for Congress, and the negative ads that are going out on both of those sides. But you look at the Secretary of State's race. I mean, that's a pretty clean race. There has not been a lot of negative that I've been able to see on that. The Treasurer's race, you haven't seen a lot there. Vivek Malik has got to be one of the ones that has really led the charge on that, to where he's maintained his decorum on that. He's maintained it, just talking about what he's going to do and what he's done. And you talk about a success story. I mean, he really has lived the American dream. But you look at Cody Smith. Cody Smith's a very qualified. Cody led the House for 5 years as the budget chair. So I mean, he's done a great job there. So I think Missouri's going to be a winner no matter what in that particular race.
It's interesting to watch some of those down ballot races because we've seen them get a little nasty in the lieutenant governor's race and all that, and got a giant crowd. What is it, 8 on the GOP ticket, I think, in the lieutenant governor's race, or is that Secretary of State? I can't keep them all. Yeah, I can't keep them all straight.
Yeah, Secretary of State. And we saw some new polling numbers over the weekend that showed Valentina Gomez a couple points in front of current Speaker of the House, Dean Plocker, which seems not right, but maybe, I don't know. But with so many candidates in that race, 20% of the vote could win it easily?
Well, I don't know, Valentina Gomez, I tell you, she's got the smallest signs of any of the candidates I've ever seen.
They're adorable.
They're tiny, but they're so tiny that they actually draw your attention to them. So we've got them in our neighborhood. I see them all driving down the expressway. They're there. So whoever's doing that for her, they've done a great job.
She's an interesting candidate. We had her on the air with us the other day, and some of her political ads, I don't know if the phrase is correct, but she doesn't mince words, does she?
No, she doesn't. Just go, we're just going to do it. Isn't that what she said? We're just going to do it?
Well, the video she posted on her X account on Friday, I believe it was, I was seeing it about an hour after it had been posted, and it had, I think, 3 million views already or something like that. Of course, she's talking about the Olympics and talking about the transgender athletes specifically and using slurs to talk about the athletes. And of course, both sides pick up on that because the left, outcries about the slurs, and everyone just is kind of going, is this lady real? Like, is this legit?
Well, it's America,
Yeah.
You can say what you want to in this country, and that's really the good thing about it.
Well, when she was on the air with us, she even talked about that whole angle because she was a competitive collegiate swimmer in her day, and her brother was an Olympian.
Yeah.
So and her take on it was, if I got in the pool and swam against my brother in the same race, he would beat the heck out of me, I think was to paraphrase her words. But yeah.
Just like the boxing the other night.
Well, yeah, now we're that's one we can talk about a little later this morning. But Hannah, we're not so sure the initial story we got on it was completely on the money, was it?
Yeah, and I actually saw Randy over the weekend, and we were talking about this, and we might want to save it for when Randy's here because he's sort of doubling down a little bit. When I was telling him that, we might need to issue a fact check on ourselves. So Randy has lots to say about that still.
finalists. Per the Washington Post, at least 3 met with Harris in person on Sunday: Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. Shapiro and Kelly are both seen as the heavy favorites because of their chances of carrying their home battleground states to victory in November. Shapiro, though, is facing criticism for his views after the Israel-Hamas war. The governor, who is Jewish, denounced universities accusing some of failing to protect students in the wake of the campus protests.
Vice President Kamala Harris making the biggest decision in her 2-week-old presidential campaign as she chooses a running mate, as we just heard, and preparing to introduce a new Democratic ticket to voters in those battleground states. Like they said, it's unclear after a day of interviews with the finalists where she'd made the final decision. People familiar with the search are saying the campaign plans to officially announce the choice through an online message to supporters before a rally tomorrow, where she's expected to make her first appearance with her pick. Like we said, short list has Mark Kelly of Arizona, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, and Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. So we'll see where that all heads and if that actually happens tomorrow. From the stranger department of stories, the D.C. Rundown, the independent presidential candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., said in a social media video that he drove a dead bear cub carcass from upstate New York and placed it in Central Park in New York 10 years ago, sharing the story in what he said was an effort to combat a forthcoming New Yorker article he predicted would be, in his words, a bad story, believe it or not. In the video posted to his X account, Kennedy tells Roseanne Barr, of all people, about traveling through the Hudson Valley of New York, seeing the young bear that had been hit and killed by another driver, decided to put it in his car. He said it was in good condition. I was going to put the meat in my refrigerator and skin the bear. But he decided to talk to his friends and take the bear to Central Park and then make it look like it had been hit and killed by a bike.
You know, because that's the next logical step when dealing with a bear cub carcass.
I think maybe the brainworm got a little more than he's admitting to there on that one. Wow, what a weird story, though.
And the video of him admitting this wasn't supposed to be released, right? It was a leaked video?
Yeah, so he wanted to get ahead of it, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Always beware when you stand in front of a camera what you say.
Well, it's like we have kind of a golden rule in radio, right? Like, if you're in a room with microphones, you should always act and conduct yourself as if the microphones might be on.
Because they just might be.
Yeah.
And generally are. Whether you're aware of it or not.
Well, I know when I was in television and I was directing in television, I always told the anchors, I said, don't do anything on set you don't want to be on TV. And so often you'd find them either picking their nose or something else. And so
or adjusting some article of clothing or something.
Whoa.
Or the really wide side shot of Rod Smith and his checkered Bermuda shorts, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they don't always wear long pants.
All right. Well, we're going to see where this all goes in the deal with the Bears notwithstanding. Kamala tomorrow sounds like making a VP pick on that one. So we'll see where that all goes. And
I heard something that can make that today, possibly today.
I've heard rumblings of either option, so
yeah,
we'll see.
Wait and see what happens there and who ends up when the smoke clears, and then if it's somebody that she could use to lock in one of those battleground states. Come back and talk some more about the business of the day and where these Missouri elections are headed. Andy off today. Producer Hannah along with Brian Hauswirth. Talking with the Missouri Times' Scott Faughn a little bit after 7:05. Get his predictions for primary Tuesday. Jefferson City Mayor Ron Fitzwater will join us. I bet we can get an update from Ron on where we're at with our conference center development in downtown Jefferson City. Then a lot to talk about with Missouri Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, who endorsed Kurt Schaefer for as his replacement since Blaine is going to retire in the 3rd Congressional District end of the year. What do you think about that race, Griff?
Well, I tell you, Kurt Schaefer's really getting out there. He was at the ham breakfast on Friday. He bought, I think, 3 hams that went north of $1,000 each. So showing support for our 4-H and FFA kids here locally. I think that's a big plus for him. That event is always one of my favorites to go to, and besides getting to have a nice breakfast, to be able to see our young people and what they're doing. But I know that you're talking about the negative ads they're going, and the mailers that I get at my house. I'm telling you, I know her last week, I think it was, that Randy said he saves every one of those, and he kind of looks at them. I have to confess that I don't save those. I file those in the proper place, but yeah, it bothers me to see some of the things that people are saying. And I think one of the reasons it bothers me is that this is a primary, and we got Republicans running against Republicans, and what we're saying about each other during those races. Once we get to the general, they're giving our opponents a lot of fodder that they can use against us, and so that's my proponent. That's one reason why I like the clean race, being able to talk about what you're going to do, and I think that Kurt has done that. I think Kurt has done a good job of being able to tell us what he's going to do, and if he were to be elected, I'm not sure that Bob definitely has done that. At least I haven't heard a lot about that. But it's just, and I tell you this, Bruce Bowman. I got a phone call yesterday. I looked at my phone, and it's a call from Bruce, and so he's actively involved in making some phone calls out there. So is he a dark horse in this? I don't know, but I think there's something to be looked at.
Well, it's interesting to watch these races and all, and gosh, Blaine Luetkemeyer has been in there for so long, that it was just kind of a given that it's been so long since he really had any really viable candidates who ran against him, who got their own pretty good chunk of the vote. Blaine has pretty much run away with 3rd, and I think Kurt Schaefer and Dr. Bob Onder are a whole lot closer in this one for the GOP primary. Well,
and I think that a lot of people didn't really took for granted what Blaine did for us in Washington, D.C. I mean, you look at some of the committees that Blaine served on, and you look at some of the committees he served on and who he served on those with, and kind of the stuff he had to put up with a lot of the congressmen that he had colleagues with. But in that atmosphere, he did a really good job for Missouri for 16 years. He did a great job for Missouri, and I'm glad to see that he's going to be able to step back and enjoy some of his retirement. I think we're going to miss his leadership, but I think that's the key thing of going into Congress, of being able to set yourself apart from all the mess that's up there in the sound that's going on. And I think you look at Bob Onder, you look at Kurt Schaefer, which one of those can really do the best job for us, and how their voice is going to appear. And I go back to really what they did when they were in the Senate. And you look at what Kurt Schaefer did when he was in the Senate. Look at his record of what he had. And you look at the record of what Bob Onder did when he was in. So you compare the two of those, and I think that gives us a kind of a forecast of what's going to happen when they get to Congress.
Well, talking about the mailers that we've been getting, my husband and I got a kick out of the mail we received on Friday because we had 3 mailers just for the CD3 race. And it's like you get one mailer that makes one claim, and in the same day you'll get another mailer that makes the opposite claim about the same candidate. And so it's just, we kind of have gotten some amusement out of looking at all of them all spread out together and looking at how they attack each other in a way.
Yeah, I'd like to go to Randy's house and see the entire collection. That would be interesting to see.
Wallpaper the bathroom with them, if you've gotten as many of them as we have here lately.
Well, Randy's not here, so I can say this, but I think he's a little bit of a pack rat. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he has saved all of those.
he's just doing research for the morning show, obviously.
Oh, yes, yes.
But I mean, that was my take on it, because other than a couple of the local races, the vast majority of all those have bright red communist Chinese flags and Missouri farmland with the arch in the background and all. It almost becomes kind of laughable on some, I think, Griff.
Well, it really does. And I think that in most races, and really to be a politician nowadays, you got to have a good sense of humor. But one of the things that I have kind of lived by for a long time is that I just don't take things personally. You can't take things personally about what's being said about you. If you do, it's going to wear you down to the point where you're just going to give up. But I think that your mission that you have and what you want to try to do for the people of Missouri, especially in the district that you're vying for, is you got to be able to look at what's going to be in their best interest. And I think as far as mid-Missouri goes, I think somebody like Kurt Schaefer would do a good job for mid-Missouri in keeping somebody here in the middle part of Missouri that represents us in Washington, D.C. And I think that's when voters look at it, I'm not sure that's what they look at. And I think that that's a question as to for the people who are a lot smarter than me to be able to figure out, what's going to trip their trigger to sit there when they're sitting down to vote to mark my name as opposed to my opponents.
State Representative Dave Griffith, who you might just happen to see on a ballot here in mid-Missouri, Griff running unopposed in the primary.
I'm going to win that race.
You better. What do you think drives the fact that, and I know we've talked about this ad nauseum on the air, about in a really, really good, powerful presidential election year, 64, 65, maybe pushing 70% of the voters go to the polls. Well, we've got the Boone County clerk saying 25 to 30% tomorrow. We've got the Cole County clerk being optimistic and saying 35%. And we've got some big deal races out there, presumably to be decided in the GOP primaries. Whoever wins those, it's definitely theirs to hang on to. Is there a solution to driving to turn away voter apathy, I guess?
I really don't know. You and I were talking about this off the air, and I really can't figure out why we're allowing 35% or 30% of the population to elect the people that are going to represent everybody. So that means 70% or 75% of the people are not voting, so they just take whatever's given to them. And trying to figure out a formula as to what's going to bring those people to the polls. We give our employees time off so they can go vote. I know that a lot of employers that we have give 2 or 3 hours to go vote. It certainly doesn't take that long to go vote, but I think giving that time to do that is a mark that the employers are supporting that process. But being able to get them interested enough to where they will do their homework. And I can't tell you the number of people that call me and that say, how should I vote on this, or who should I vote for this office and all that. And my response to them is, I can tell you how I'm going to vote, but I really wish that you would do your research and go on Google if you need to, or go on Bing and check them out. Check out the person that you're going to vote for before you make the decision, and just don't go down there and whoever's number one on the ballot, that's who you vote for. I remember back in the day, John, and you do too, that you could just go in and just vote either Democrat or Republican. I mean, you didn't have to fill out and you were done. You just made one check mark and you're done. And I never did that. I mean, I think my parents probably did that. I think there's a lot of my relatives did that. It's simply because they just wanted to be done with it. They wouldn't say they voted, but they didn't. Is that really voting? Is that really casting your vote for some person? It's just a straight ticket vote. So I think that nowadays we don't have that option. If we do, I haven't seen it. But because I never have really voted one straight ticket on. There's always been somebody on the other side of the aisle that I felt like was a better person for that position. And I think that's the way it should be. But certainly we live
in the primary. You don't have that option, though.
No, you don't. And I've actually had people come to me and say, I'm an independent, so where do I get my independent ballot? Well, you get your independent ballot in November. That's when you get that. So
it is a challenge, and I know it's concerning because the clerk's offices, and hats off to them, and the volunteer. Well, not volunteer; they get a small stipend, but basically volunteer election judges and all that go out and sit at the polls from 6 in the morning till well after 7. They put in a lot of work, and I know it's disheartening to them when they see very small turnouts.
Well, one of my friends in Rotary is going to be an election judge, and He was telling us that where they're going to go, they have to be there at like 5 o'clock in the morning. They get there at 5 in the morning, 4:45, and they're there until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And the amount of money they get for that, he said one of the perks from that is, depending on where you are, is how well they feed you. So I think there is a driving force to food can always bring people in, but I do agree with you. I think that where I vote over on the east side, there are times when I go in there that I'm the only person in there. Of course, I go early, but that's got to be frustrating for them that they are doing their job and then we don't have that many people that show up.
And it's not that tough to do it. If you can't get out on Election Day, there are plenty of options out there, especially with the no excuse absentee voting. And, you know, because I've voted absentee because we get a little busy on Election Day in this business, as you can relate from your TV days, that, you know, there's a lot of options out there. There's no real excuse for not doing it other than this is a U.S. of A. and they can't make you do anything you don't want to.
You know, and I remember even before the no excuse voting that there's those that wanted to vote absentee simply because they didn't want to go to the polls. They may have something else to do, so they would make up something. And so I think the no excuse is a better way of doing it, at least it's an honest way of doing it. But you're right. I mean, you can go in, and it does take time to go to the county clerk's office and vote, but it's the same process as you have when you're sitting there in the at the polling station. So for all the listeners out there, I just wish you'd jump in there and get out and vote tomorrow.
There you go. State Representative Dave Griffith in with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Keep an eye on what's happening in the political scene in Missouri and a big primary day tomorrow. When we come back on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. in with us as well. 7:05, we're going to talk to Scott Faughn, publisher of the Missouri Times, get his take on who the winners and the losers may well be in the big primary tomorrow all across the state of Missouri. Griff, we were talking about off air, not to leave anybody out of the loop, but there are a couple of constitutional amendments you will see on your ballot. Read them once, read them twice, read them 3 times, and then figure out how you're going to vote for them. The one is for guarantee a 25% return from the general revenue for the Kansas City Police Department.
Yep.
The backstory on that one was the one that went on the ballot, and then the court shot it down. Now it's back on the ballot. And the other one is child care, which has a lot of import than a lot more folks than just the Kansas City area, doesn't it?
It really does. And last week we had a meeting at the Chamber of Commerce that Gary Palmer put together, where Representative Veet and Senator Bernstetter and myself were there talking about child care here in Missouri and what's going on with that, and kind of what needs to be done and what we can do as far as the House and the Senate can do for that. It's always been an issue, and really we get down to infants, and that's where the rules that have been stated that there needs to be one adult for every 4 or 1 adult for every 4 babies that are there. You look at, can that number be lower? In Kansas, it's 3. I think the safety of the child obviously is uppermost on our minds as to how that could shake down. But you look at what the cost, especially after COVID, look at what the cost of daycare is for parents out there. You look at the return on investment. Is it really worth my while to go to work if we're paying daycare workers and child care workers $14, $15, $16 an hour, and I'm making $12, $13, maybe $14 an hour? Is it really worth me going back into the workplace or just staying home? And one of the things I think that is really taken a hit, there used to be for a long time, there'd be mothers that would open up their home to a lot of their friends that had kids, say, you can bring your babies in and I'll watch them while you're at work. And so and I think a few bad actors got involved, especially over to the east of us, where some bad things happen. So legislature gets involved, Senate gets involved. We make rules that stipulate. We do that just for a very few. And so where's the mix? Where's the solution to that? I don't know, but I think we have to try and figure it out, because we got to keep those people in the workforce as much as we can, but also provide a real good atmosphere for their child at the same time.
Well, we've seen Boone County Sheriff's Office even talked a while back about their long-term plan is to put in-house daycare for their staffers. And I know we've heard from several of the manufacturing plants around mid-Missouri who have taken a very serious look at providing that as a perk to employees.
Well, and there's some third-party companies that are out there that's what they do. I know that as far as the state goes, we've looked at that, and I know we talked about it as far as the Truman Building goes. Can we put in a daycare center there in the Truman Building? Right now, there's talk about what's going to happen at the Fulton State Hospital, to where the overnight shift, the 11 to 7 shift, if we've got daycare there where they can bring their kids in. Obviously, they're going to be sleeping at that time, but they would be there in-house with their children. So if anything happened, they could go right down there. They could be on premises when they're there. So I think we're trying to find solutions to those issues. It is a big issue we have. It's just like housing is a big issue for us right now. I think child daycare is another one of those. The Early Childhood Development Center we're going to have on the east side on East McCarty. I drove by there the other night, and they're really making good progress on that. That's going to take some of the pressure off. But when the pressure is taken off there, or the school district's going to take that on, it's also going to hurt those private daycare centers. In the same time, you're taking some of those kids out of there. So where's the balance? I don't know. We got to try to figure that out, though.
That is it, and it's been an uphill battle because of the legislation. Because you said, like, the bad actors throw a lot more into the mix than you would statistically imagine, don't they? They
really do. And it really is that, and that's a shame that happens, because we need to look at the big picture, I think, and what's going to be in the best interest of the entire society. You're always going to have those, no matter how well you try to legislate something. You're always going to end up with an issue with somebody that's not going to follow the rules, or somebody that
Morning, bud. You're holding the fort down here for an election day. I mean,
Well,
I understand taking off after a big day, but they're taking off before the big day. I don't get it.
Got to get rested up, the calm before the storm.
maybe they're out there
I feel it.
rattling some doorknobs and kissing some babies or something like that. Let's get right to it, Scott. What do you think? Let's hit the governor's race, the GOP primary. Who's it's to win and who's to lose?
I mean, if I think it's going to be a very close finish, and I guess I'll steal Roy Blunt's way of sizing up elections. He would say, "Well, I'd rather be this one than that one. I'd rather be the other, the third guy." I think in this race, Bill Eigel needs the most things to go right. He needs a very low turnout. The fewer people that turn out to vote, by far the better for Bill Eigel. His voters are going to crawl over broken glass to get to vote for him. They are psyched. They are all in. The voters, his opponents, they have their passionate supporters, no question, but Bill's are on a different level. But there's fewer of them, frankly. Every survey I've seen would show Bill is outside the margin of error behind. And every survey I've seen shows Kehoe up marginally, or the race literally statistically tied. So I guess I'd rather be Kehoe because he's had the most money in the last closing weekend to get his message out there. But I mean, I don't think it'll be particularly close. I think that the voters have made a decision and broke. I just don't think they had time to pull it because I've said before, if you think about it, the only two comparable primaries were the 22 Senate primary and then the governor's primary 8 years ago. And when you saw Greitens and Schmidt start to take off, it was kind of that week after the 4th of July. And so it started before, and you saw it reflected in polling a few days into that week. This year, I mean, people in Missouri have all the normal things they have to deal with in life. Your job, the kids, getting to ball games, planning the vacation. Then you had a president go comatose during a debate. You had a president get shot in the ear. You had a president quit, and a new presidential candidate, all in that time where they normally would sit and kind of start to work out where they were on these races. You had all these historically huge things. So I think there's a big number of undecided in a lot of these races. And in the governor's race, really 15% undecided going into the last weekend is a lot.
What do you think's going to happen in some of the down ballot races? Because those of us in the trenches, we're familiar, most part, with the candidates. We know a lot of them from their time at the State House. But for the average voter out there, Scott, do you think they could maybe be a little baffled when they go and look at their Secretary of State ballot on the GOP side and there's 8 choices?
Oh, I think that is the biggest crapshoot I've ever seen. I'll just start with the top. The race has had so much money spent that I think folks have some sense of the candidates as the Attorney General's race. I think at the end of the day, you had, $15-16 million in East Coast money come in. I do think the money from Missouri is more valuable in Missouri because there is actually Missourians giving that money, whereas it's just totally phoned in by people that have no vote here, no presence. I think Sharp's a good dude. I think that when you look back on this race, I think Andrew Bailey's probably – I'd rather be Bailey than Sharp for sure the day before the election. I just think they never gave you a reason to fire the Missouri war hero. And, yes, as a Harvard lawyer from New York who even is the Trump – has worked for Trump, is that good? Yes. I think that race – when Trump – you tie yourself totally to Trump. That's your whole campaign. Which it was smart, and Will's a smart guy. Then you got to endorse him. I think that hurts your argument with folks. But mostly, I think folks never gave him a reason to fire a war hero. In Missouri, I don't know that we go around looking for reasons to fire war heroes. If you don't give us one, we're probably not. The lieutenant governor race, look, Wassinger, hasn't done a lot of campaigning actually, but he has bought a bunch of TV commercials. I think I'd rather be Huff because look, if we drove over to Versailles. John, there's only one sign we're going to see, and that's Lincoln Huff. I think Missouri history has shown the guys that come in and just write a check and don't really do a lot of actual campaigning outside of the TV commercials. I think that's hard. I think if Huff is tied on Election Day, which is about where I would take it, I think Rader's about a half step behind. She could make that up being a woman. I don't know if she will, but I think it's possible. For her to win, but I say if Wassinger and Huff are tied on Election Day, Huff's actual campaign will carry the day. The Secretary of State, who knows, John, you may end up winning in a write-in vote tomorrow night. And then the Treasurer, look, Vivek Malik has taken an onslaught of dirty politics here this last weekend. I mean, you had Sam Page's lackey was out attacking him. The Cody Smith campaign decided to go nasty and go nasty hard there at the end. So we'll see if that turns it around. I mean, this is we were talking. I remember vividly. I was sitting in a Lowe's parking lot one day in Arnold, Missouri, talking about this race with y'all a year ago. And to me, I expected this. Frankly, I expected it sooner. But I really think Vivek has built a name ID and a relationship with Missourians that probably carries the day. He had too big a lead to build up. This dirty stuff gets a lot of attention, and it moves people, no question. I don't know if this is real dirty racist stuff moves people enough to elect Cody.
Again, our guest here is Scott Faughn. He is the publisher of the Missouri Times, and we appreciate him joining us live here on 93.9 The Eagle and also on News Radio 950 KWOS. Scott, I want to ask you about a mid-Missouri Senate race that I profiled today on The Eagle. It's more in the Eagle listening area than it is in KWOS, but it's basically newly drawn district. State Senator Denny Hoskins currently represents it's the 21st, and it involves now Cooper as well as Howard and Saline in our 93.9 The Eagle listening area. And after 9 o'clock, I'll have a story up. I interviewed both Republican candidates, Representatives Curtis Gregory and Doug Ritchie. Both are pretty powerful chairmen, both well-respected in Jefferson City. Of course, Curtis Gregory, a captain at Mizzou. Doug Ritchie has been a pastor and a minister, etc. Who do you see winning that race?
I tell you, they have a flagship council up there, right? It's supposed to have a little political involvement. If you don't elect Curtis Gregory, lower the flag. Get rid of that flag. There is no flagship council. There's no council. If you don't elect if you don't elect Curtis Gregory, there's really not much point in having it. Mizzou's going to have a Democrat state senator. He's going to be extremely talented, very effective, but he's going to be a Democrat, and that's going to matter a lot. I mean, it really, practically speaking, that matters a lot. And so, if you don't have that fighter in there for Mizzou, it's going to get lonely. And you'll be fine as long as Choi is there. If Moon Choi is there, look. I mean, if you ever in your life, I could speak to my professional career. I have never in my professional career seen Mizzou on better footing than it is today. And that starts at the top because I've also in my career seen it as worse as I've ever seen. And the difference in here was leadership. It was Moon Choi. Now, as long as Moon's there, you have to think everything's going to be fine. Boy, you let Moon leave and you let another problem like happened at 15 happen. My God, if you didn't have Kurt Schaefer in the Senate then, and then followed up by Caleb Brown, Mizzou would have had core funding cuts. You would have seen programs move to Springfield. It matters. And Curtis Gregory's a serious person. Look, this comes down to you want a senator that knows the difference between a herbicide and a pesticide. And if you want a senator that knows the intricate details of how an abortion's performed, well, you probably should vote for the suburban guy. If you want a guy that actually understands ag and the university, and will vote pro-life too, well, you've got a choice in Curtis Gregory. I think it just comes down to, does this district have urban values or rural values? And look, our friends in the cities are nice folks. I mean, the ones that aren't murdering folks are making folks wear masks. But I personally, might not surprise you, I'm a little more rural focused. But if you want an urban legislator, an urban style, Doug Ritchie brings that urban style. If you want a rural style, well, you've got a choice in Curtis Gregory. I guess this is what direction do folks want to take with that district, and it is the most clear urban rural choice you're going to get on the ballot this entire election cycle.
Thank you, Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. Dave Griffith here. What do you think about the congressional district number 3? What do you think on that one?
I think Kurt Schaefer was running an incredible campaign. I think Kurt Schaefer was on. I think it would be Bob Onder's the favorite. He started the race as the favorite. I think it would have been an upset. I think Kurt Schaefer was on the way to pulling off an upset, if you want the truth. I think Donald Trump got involved in a big way, and I think that really changed the trajectory of that. Now, I don't know about you all, but every time I even think about checking the mail, I've got something attacking Bob Onder in the mail. And I usually have something with Schaefer, but not every day. I watched the advertising in the mail. It did not slow down even when Trump endorsed Onder. So, I mean, Kurt is finished. He's running through, as we'd say back in the day, he's running through the end and finishing hard. Now, my gut still tells me Onder is the favorite, especially when you saw that Justin Hicks. Justin Hicks was polling pretty well, but I'm not sure some of that wasn't just some folks that were residually not voting for Bob. He dropped out of the race. I think that underscores a bigger advantage than you might think for Senator Onder. It just took away if you wanted to vote for a St. Charles County person, it took away a viable option there. So I think it's close. I think Kurt is fighting like the Dickens. And again, it's just a choice. You know, do you want your congressman to be from St. Louis, or do you want to be from Columbia? And folks will get to make their decision. The other stuff, I mean, let's be honest, a freshman member of Congress doesn't really matter. I mean, you're not going to do all that much. But 10 years from now, can you bring home money to fix things like the tri-level in Jeff City? You know, who will actually roll their sleeves up, or who will be on the internet telling you things you want to hear? You kind of get to pick your flavor here a little bit with this congressional race. I think Kurt's had a serious headwind for about a month, and the old boys just fought through it. He's got a puncher's chance to win, but if I had to guess, if I was Roy Blunt, I think I'd rather be Onder. But boy, Kurt has fought and fought. I have respected the resilience of his campaign to just keep plugging along.
Scott, we're about out of time, but our stock question, I've been pitching to Dave Griffith this morning as well. Is there a solution for voter apathy?
No, and I don't think we need one. I mean, if you don't want to vote, I would encourage you not to vote. If you don't care, don't vote. Now, don't whine, but I'm a believer that, look, I think one solution for voter apathy, and I don't like to spend my day taking out folks in the city. There's plenty of folks that are ready to do that. But in the city, the lines are so long, it actually prohibits working people from going. I'll be honest with you. In my view, working people have a very hard time standing in line for 2 hours, raising families. I mean, your job will give you time off, but I mean, they ain't happy about it. And so I'm of the belief that the lines in the cities actually create a legitimate barrier. There is no legitimate barrier to you in Cole County. The election folks do a great job. I can't speak to Boone County, but if you don't want to vote, if you don't want to take the time to read up on some of these things, then don't vote. So I guess my thing would be, if you're apathetic, don't vote. Now people, you know what folks will always say, the do-gooders or clutchers, oh, if it wasn't for the negative campaigns, that's malarkey. The negative campaigns drive turnout more than positive ones. People love to be against something and show up and vote against something. They absolutely love it, and they always have responded well to it, and I think they always will. Back with Thomas Jefferson and John Adams had the nastiest campaign. People thought, oh, my God, this is so terrible. Well, it's just progressed on to, was it Bang High Bob and Bangkok Bob maybe, and Shanghai Schaefer, Beijing Bob, I guess is what it is. So, I mean, this is just a natural progression of all that. So, John, I guess my point would be, if you don't care, don't vote.
There you go. Scott Faughn, Missouri Times. Scott, we'll see you on Election Day.
Oh, very excited. We're election night in Missouri. We're going to broadcast tomorrow night starting at 8. And I'll be thrilled. The ones that I start drinking Bud Lights before they're called to tune in Wednesday morning on Wake Up in Missouri and see who won.
There we go.
have more Olympic news, and I'm going to need all of us in the studio this morning to strap on our maturity hats. Okay.
That's a large ask on a Monday morning.
Do you already know where this is going, John, by chance?
I have my fears.
So over the weekend, one of the sports that started their preliminary rounds was pole vaulting in track and field. And the internet has been taken by storm because of a French pole vaulter's miss on one of his vaults. Could we say that, I guess?
Yeah, miss is good.
Yeah. He was vaulting. He was so close. He was like 0.2 meters away from vaulting the qualifying height to move on to the next round of the Olympic competition. And we see this beautiful slow motion video of him going up and over the bar. His legs clear the bar. He's trying to lean back. And one important part of his body just barely nicked the bar. And it caused the bar to come crashing down to the mat with him. And, of course, these pole vaulters are wearing what I would call a wrestling singlet. It doesn't leave a lot to the imagination anyways.
No.
Right?
Nope.
And unfortunately for this French pole vaulter, his crotch is what hit the bar, and the world got to see a little more of everything that the uniform already shows in the slow motion clip of him falling with the bar down to the mat.
Why do you think they call it the pole?
So there you go. I've never seen someone at the Olympics get so much attention online for losing. But here we are. Anthony Ammirati, French pole vaulter, lost because his junk hit the pole vault bar.
There you go. Well, and I think we're back to our inappropriate discussion of the cardboard no-sex beds and the whole 9 yards at the Olympics. Maybe he was just sort of...
Yeah.
What was the line from Jurassic Park? Life finds a way.
Well, I mean, hopefully he gets some internet fame out of this, and maybe that, soothes
maybe
the
a whole
broken
new
heart.
career, you know?
There you go.
All right. Ron Fitzwater, Jefferson City's mayor, get an update on There you go. And as a GOP committeeman, you've got your name on the ballot and all, not to leave anybody out of the loop. But, boy, been there, done that. And you were our reporter a number of years ago, a couple different times from the RNC, weren't you?
We had some good fun from the national convention. Yes, my name is on the ballot. I mean, we have to go through that process every couple of years as well. If we don't have an opponent, I mean, it just goes through either on either side. But if you have an opponent, you get the privilege of being on the ballot. So I'm on there tomorrow, and we'll see how things go. It's been a great opportunity for me. I think we've made great strides. Republicans are doing very well in Cole County, and we hope to continue.
Talk to us. I guess our stock question we've been asking amongst ourselves. We asked Missouri Times' Scott Faughn. I know it's frustrating for you. The whole angle of voter apathy and low turnouts, even on what presumably looks to be a pretty darn big election day across the Show Me State and here in mid-Missouri.
I know we say it a lot. This is the most important election of our lifetime, but I think for the state of Missouri, this is a very critical election. I mean, who is governor of this state is going to set the course for 4 or 8 years, and we're going through some very difficult times at the federal level. We need a strong state of Missouri, so yes, it is a very critical time. And I talk to people, when I go out to the coffee shop, it's pretty unanimous, maybe not 100%, but 90% of the people have something to talk to you about. I mean, that's the game, but only 35% of those folks that are talking to you, on average went out and voted. It's frustrating. We have got important decisions to be made tomorrow. Hopefully people are in that group that have already voted, but if you haven't, I think Scott was talking about the fact in Cole County, Steve Korsmeyer does an amazing job, and our volunteers on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, that go in there and work the polls, do an amazing job of moving people through. There is no reason not to vote in Cole County. You're not going to stand in line very long. You're going to make some very important decisions. So 35% is not acceptable, but I mean, we can only do what we can to encourage people to get out.
You talk about 35% here in Cole County, and I think one of the things that Scott mentioned was you get into cities in St. Louis and Kansas City and the lines that you've got there, that's what's cutting down on the people, the apathy that goes along with that. And I wouldn't even venture to guess what their percentages are, but if you want to talk about the voter apathy here in Jefferson City, where you've got 35%, that means 65% are not voting.
Correct.
And so that their voice is not being heard, and they're relying upon other people to carry that for them. For me, that's sad. And I think we say, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Well, they still do.
They still do.
But I think that, what you're on the ballot for as far as the Cole County Republican Committee, the people we've got on there, what's the mix that we have on that particular ballot issue? As far as the people that you got new people coming in, I understand, that are not normally on that ballot.
There have been some that have filed. I got a candidate the last day. I mean, that's why the program is set up. There's a time frame. There's a number of people that have been on there in the past. So, I mean, we'll see where it goes, but we've done a lot of work to get the party where it is.
Again, our guest here is the mayor of Jefferson City, Ron Fitzwater. He is live with us on News Radio 950 KWS and also 93.9 The Eagle. Mayor, my colleague Randy Tobler and I, and also Hannah, the producer, were out at Piccadilly on Saturday night. A huge fundraiser for downtown Jefferson City. Raised thousands of dollars. They did so Saturday night and every year. What are your thoughts on the job they do in the downtown beautification they're involved in?
The Downtown Association has done an amazing job. Kara Stark was the president last year. I think they just made a changeover, but she's been trying to bring a more business-like focus to that group. They've done a good job in the past, but I think her impetus and trying to do some things different. We get some pushback from some of the store owners that get frustrated when we close down High Street or close down some of the business routes, but I mean, we've got a great downtown. We enjoy showing it off. There's some events where you just need to protect the attendees, so you've got to close streets. But unfortunately, I had a conflict Saturday night, but the pictures I saw and the reports I got from Piccadilly and Pink was very exciting. I think it was right there in front of the governor's mansion and just a beautiful setting. So I appreciate the people that went down. The Downtown Association is really working aggressively to beautify and work with our downtown. So I commend them for all the activities that they've been doing.
And the food was wonderful, just so you know.
Well, I'm sorry I missed it now.
Jefferson City Mayor Ron Fitzwater in studio with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Mr. Mayor, give us an update on the Conference Center Hotel project, where we're at, and the old News Tribune building in downtown Jefferson City is officially history, isn't it?
It is history. I was watching them. I went down to the office this morning. We've had to sod part of the lot to protect the retaining wall on the backside. It's amazing how much change in elevation there is going from Capitol Avenue just to the alleyway. So they were watering the grass that we put back there. They were cleaning up the parking lot. So the News Tribune is history. Hopefully about this time next year, the parking garage will be the same way. We want to give the developer a clean palette. They'll have that entire half block to build the project. So far, the project is on track. We are in the design phase, trying to do our due diligence. We just put on the website the parking study, which was done by a company called Fishbeck. They did a comprehensive look at our parking downtown, and we also put the market analysis on there, kind of taking a look at the hotel project, how it fits within our current community and what it's going to bring for the community. The exciting thing is we were thinking a hotel in the 150 to 200 range, and they said we need a hotel of 250 rooms to make that project viable. We're looking at 800 parking spots. We currently have a little over 500, so there'll be plenty of additional parking for both the hotel and the conference center. And then a conference center of about 36,000 square feet with a main ballroom of 18,000 square feet. So depending on how the group is configured, we can do 1,000 to 1,500 people in that ballroom very comfortably. And it just opens up some amazingly exciting opportunities. But the other thing, it puts Jefferson City on the map for meetings and draws back groups that have left here, that were here or could never come here. So we think eventually it's going to raise the bar for everybody, and it's going to bring business. A 250-room hotel will not handle some conventions, so we know there's going to be a lot of spillover to current hotels in the community. So it's going to be an exciting project. Everything is online. If you go to JC Regional Economic Partnership or to the city's website, you can connect to it.
You know, Mayor, when I was on the city council, we went through the same procedure, and we had a lot of groups that came in, focus groups that came in to talk to us about the importance of conference center here in Jefferson City. And many of them, like your organization, many of the associations talked about having to go to the lake or go to Columbia or go elsewhere. And this is really going to open us up for that business we're losing right now.
Absolutely. We do not figure into the numbers in this community because there's no facility that can handle us. So ours will be entirely new business, as with many other associations. So it is very exciting for our community what's going to go on that site.
Mayor, in terms of I definitely am interested in that spillover, if you will, because you're right, they wouldn't have enough if it were 250 rooms to accommodate everyone. So you would have people, and I'm not picking or choosing anyone, you'd have people maybe going down to the Capitol Plaza or to Fairfield or wherever they need to go, Best Western. What are you hearing from the community about this project? Because as you know, it's been talked about, John and I'd say at least 3 decades, this very issue.
Well, I mean, there's still some skepticism out there, and we're trying to address that. I think we have got the premier location in Jefferson City. We have never had the luxury of a site that close to the Capitol, across the street from the governor's mansion, in the heart of our business district, restaurants, bars, shops within a short walk from the facilities. So we keep trying to push on the positive side. This is going to be an economic boost to downtown Jefferson City that people have never seen. So we're trying to address the people that are frustrated. I mean, we get questions, are you building it too big? Or are you not building it big enough? Are you building too many parking spots? Or are you not building enough parking spots? And that's good. People are engaged. We have hired professionals, and that was one of the things that I insisted on when I came into office, that we were going to hire professionals to take us out of the loop a little bit and come in with their projections. And we feel very comfortable that Garfield Public-Private, the company that we hired out of Texas, has done a great job of bringing professionals from across the country to give us great advice.
Jefferson City Mayor Ron Fitzwater in with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Representative Dave Griffith in with us as well. Mr. Mayor, something Dave and I talked about earlier, and it mainly was because it's one of the constitutional amendments on the ballot you'll see tomorrow, and that is tax credits for individuals, more like groups and big entities when it comes to child care and all. And I know you and I were not that long ago in a Chamber of Commerce function where some big movers and shakers, even with some of the biggest manufacturers in the area, were talking very seriously about the potential for raising the bar on child care, even up to the point of offering it in-house.
Absolutely. Child care is critical in our community. COVID devastated that industry, drove some operators out of business, and prices have, as you indicated, Representative, prices have gone up considerably. I compliment Brian McGraw, our superintendent, what they're doing with the school system. I think we're on schedule to go out for technically the groundbreaking. It's been canceled a couple of times because of Mother Nature, but I drove by the site the other day as well, and it is really progressing. I know Unilever has done some things and trying to work with their employees. We've had discussions with Hitachi. I mean, I think some of the big businesses understand if there's a role that they would like to step up. And like many things in our life, a lot of times what gets in the way are the legal challenges of their legal responsibilities and liabilities if they set up these facilities for their employees. So they tried to address those. They obviously don't want to create other problems for their companies, but they understand that their employees are struggling. So childcare, like housing in this community, are two things that we have really got to focus on, and we're trying to bring the partners to the table to do that.
Well, that's the obvious segue, too, that we've talked about, and Columbia actually got some money in that regard for what's been euphemistically called workforce housing, but oftentimes those are young people in the workforce. These are the same people that need the workforce housing, and the same folks that need that child care oftentimes.
Absolutely. We were very fortunate. We got a LIHTC project, low-income housing tax credit project, last December. We've actually got a second project on the agenda for tonight. I think council will approve us supporting, so we'll probably have two going to the state committee in December of this year. That provides another 40 to 50 units. And yeah, housing is critical, and child care, and we are trying to do our due diligence to help create that platform again. I mean, there's a role for government. There's a time when government needs to get out of the way, and that's what we're trying to create, that platform where we can do what's necessary for our community.
Mayor Ron Fitzwater from Jefferson City with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Mr. Mayor, before we let you go, maybe a pitch to those potential voters out there tomorrow.
Well, I hope everybody gets out and votes.
The public to keep reflective surfaces out of direct sunlight after a makeup mirror placed near a window started their house on fire.
Ooh.
Sam Wilkinson told the TV station it's not something you think of. Happened July 18th at their home in Kent. The nurse and her partner were at their residence when they noticed the alarming smell, and when the firefighters told us it was a mirror, we thought, how can a mirror do that? Michael smelled smoke, ran upstairs to wake up Sam, whereupon they got out of the house and dialed emergency services. A couple fire trucks showed up and managed to rescue the family cat, Tigger, and that's when firefighters revealed the alarming cause of the inferno. Sunlight had bounced off the small makeup mirror and ignited the couple's curtains. And their statement was, we didn't know a mirror could do that. Now, if you were a kid or you believe the Steve's Pest Control commercials, get a mirror and some ants and have a heyday, right, Dave Griffith?
Oh, exactly right. I never did that. We always used was a magnifying glass. We used that instead. So
there you go. You could do that with the makeup mirror. I think in some of your Green Beanie survival classes, they teach you to use your signaling mirror for the aircraft. You could use it to start a fire. Yeah. Okay. We won't get into that, right?
Well, Stephanie keeps a little makeup mirror in the studio. Now I'm questioning its placement.
That could be bad if one of our high-intensity studio lights, and boy, they are bright, we could get more than just Randy's attention with that one, couldn't we?
I've also heard the little mirrors that, folks with babies might have on the headrest of a seat of a rear-facing car seat so that they can see the baby. I've also heard horror stories about the sun reflecting off of those mirrors and catching the kid's car seat on fire when, the baby's not in it.
Woo.
So is that smoke and mirrors? Is that where that comes from?
That's exactly where it comes from. It's a British phrase.
It's a British phrase.
I don't know. Well, it's going to be interesting. We'll see what smoke and mirrors transpire when the smoke all clears tomorrow after our election day, and we'll see if our local county clerks can hold true to their predictions of 35% in Cole and 30% in Boone, or if we're going to get kind of skunked in that regard. I have my doubts sometimes.
Well, I think the real heroes and the people we need to thank the most are those election workers that we have that they come out early in the morning and stay there all day long, and so I think our appreciation needs to be shown to them.
Well, and a reminder, too, that we're going to be doing election coverage tomorrow night starting at 7. We're teaming up with our friends in Springfield for some statewide coverage, so that'll be pretty cool.
Yep, we're going to be all over it from 7 o'clock until question mark. announcing her vice presidential candidate. What do you think that'll mean for their campaign?
Well, I think what you've seen is that the media has rallied around her and propped her up and given her a nice little bump in the polls. And I think what you'll see is whoever she picks is going to get a nice little bump in the polls because the media are going to, again, surround her and whoever her nominee is and tout them. But at the end of the day, what has changed? Nothing. Nothing's changed. She is as much to blame and has to take the credit and the fault for all the things that happened in the Biden administration. She's a part of it. She, in fact, is the worst part of it from the standpoint that the border is where she's supposed to have had the expertise and been in charge of, and it's gone, it's worse than it ever was under her leadership or lack thereof. And so I think she has to own all those things. She owns inflation. She owns a struggling economy. She owns the unrest around the world. She owns the border, which is, it enables more crime and more drug use. All of these things fall right in her lap. And nothing's changed from Biden to her other than the person. The policies, all of it is still the same. Remember, she was the most liberal senator in the Senate whenever she got the nod from Joe Biden. That means she's more liberal than Bernie Sanders and all those other crackpots that are on the left in the Senate. That's how liberal she is. And what do you think she's going to get? She is so far out on the left end of the pro-choice end of the discussion. I mean, she's way over there compared to where most people are on that issue. So I don't think they get. I think at the end of the day, the last 30 days of the campaign, everybody's going to realize that all she is an empty suit. See, they've just changed one person for another. All the policies, all the all things that have been done and are going to be done in the future are the same. They haven't changed. So therefore, what do we want? We want something. If we really want change, we want our economy to go back. We want to where it was. We want stability in the world. You want to have somebody that actually doesn't defund crime, the police department. Remember, she was the one that was out here raising money for people who committed crimes to be able to get them out of jail. I mean, she's got a laundry list of stuff to go after, and I think that there will be a time, the last 4 to 6 weeks for the campaign for the election in November, where she's going to crater.
Blaine, I think for a lot of folks out there, they forget at her brief run for the Democratic nod for president the last time around, she was the one who leveled charges against both Joe Biden for being too moderate for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, if you remember, she wound up last, the first one to drop out of the presidential race. Yet here she is, 4 years later, running for president again. She was rejected by her own party. Let's don't forget that. She was rejected by her own party. She chastised her own party members significantly. She is way, way, way out there on the left end of the spectrum. I mean, you think Joe Biden is a socialist, is way out there. This lady is 2 steps farther to the left. So, I think, John, you're going to see some bumps in the polls here because of the media. They're all in love with her right now. They're going to prop her up for what good that'll do for a while. But eventually the American people are going to say, you know what, my paycheck just doesn't stretch as far as it used to anymore. Inflation is killing them at the pump. It's killing them at the grocery store. It's killing them everywhere when they want to try and go do something. It's amazing to see how our economy is starting to slow a little bit and struggle, especially the ones on the lower end of the spectrum. The people on the lower to moderate income folks are beginning to really feel the crunch of inflation. In the last 2 or 3 years here, it's cost about $1,000 more per month just to live with the same amount of goods and stuff that you purchased before that, and you haven't had $1,000 a month raise. So they're getting squeezed, and they know it. They're going to take it out. The economy is the number one issue. I was listening to the radio, TV this morning, and the economy is still the number one issue. It always is. Pocketbook, kitchen table issues. Those are the ones that affect people every day. And rightly so. I mean, these are things that their whole livelihood revolves around. How much money you can make and how can you afford to do things and provide for your families. I mean, that's what it's all about. And so whenever they struggle, they take that out on whoever's in leadership. And under Donald Trump, we had one of the best economies before the COVID hit. that we've ever had in this country. It was across the board. So those things are going to come out over the next few months here. We'll get past the Democratic convention and all the feel-good stuff that the media is going to put out there. But come 1st of October, it's going to be a different story, I think.
Congressman, closer to home, no secret that you have endorsed Kurt Schaefer to be your successor in the 3rd Congressional District of Missouri. Maybe you could reiterate that stance, and do you have any other endorsements going into this primary Tuesday?
Well, yeah, I endorse Kurt. I think he is head and shoulders above all the other candidates. He's got the moral integrity to pull this job off. He's smart as a whip. He's got the voting record to show a good, solid, conservative, pragmatic record, that, and also one of leadership, being in the Senate where he was the budget chair for 6 years. He's been in private practice as an assistant attorney general. His family is pretty well grown, so I mean, he's got a lot of life experiences besides the legislative experience. I mean, he's the whole package. He's somebody who has the integrity to pull this off. Some of the other candidates, they may have a few good things to say about him, but they don't have the whole package. And I'm really, really supportive of Kurt. I think he's going to be a fabulous congressman. I look forward to that. I've endorsed, I think, one other candidate. I think that was Vivek Malik for treasurer. Being in the financial services world, I understand that, and I kind of refrained from it. And I endorse Mike Keogh for governor, by the way. And Keogh, by the way, is the only one who wants to govern. I think that's a key. I think that's a key thing. People, as they talk to me, and they say, this group of people out here that want to raise hell and throw rocks all the time, that's getting kind of old. When are they going to start governing? When are they going to start actually being for something? And then Mike made a comment the other day. He said, look, I think I'm the only guy in the race that actually wants to govern, because the other ones want to tear stuff down. And so people want, they want leaders who actually lead, who actually get things done, who solve problems. I mean, we have a lot of problems in this state, in this country. And whenever you sit there and all you do is become a dog in a manger, or you don't want to get anything done yet. So how do you accomplish something if you can't work with people? I see it every day in D.C. These folks can't pass a bill. They can't pass an amendment that sticks on a bill. And all they do is raise heck because they can't get anything done. And they do it only for themselves, because this is the only way they can raise money, have a national profile, and go online. And they've said that out in meetings that I've been in. And so, I think governing, I think in this election is going to be very important. People who want to sit down, who want to try and solve problems, who want to try and work on issues and bring people together. I think people are going to look at that and say, you know what, I want somebody that's finally going to do something. We got issues. We got to find a way to get something done. And I think somebody like Kurt Schaefer is going to be a great guy to do that. I think Keogh is going to do that. And I think Malik he's somebody who's already proved his treasure. He's willing to sit down and bring people together and get stuff done. So those are the ones that I've endorsed. I think that those are the guys, in my mind, that actually want to try and do something and move the needle and work on issues which I think are important to ourselves as both a state and a nation.
Talk to us about the situation in Israel, Congressman, where we're at with that, the potential for a two-front war for the Israelis, or more potentially, is after the assassination and all in Iran. Where are we at with that? How are we positioned for our support of Israel? There are a lot on Capitol Hill who have really tried to back off from that position, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, John. It's a sad situation from the standpoint. Israel is our linchpin democratic ally there in the Middle East, and we have got to have those folks solid, and we've got to be solidly behind them. Not sure where Harris is. She's done a Kerry flip-flop a couple times, and really kind of concerned about that. Netanyahu spoke to a joint session of Congress a couple weeks ago, and I was there, and he's very animated this time. Usually he's pretty serious and pretty steadfast, but he was very animated this time. He is trying to stress the fact that Israel needs the United States. The United States needs Israel, and I think he's right. Israel's being attacked, as you say, John, on two fronts right now, on the south and on the north. And all of it is being funded by Iran, who, under Trump, they were just about had their economy broken. He put a sanction on their oil, and as a result, they couldn't sell it. They couldn't do anything with it, and their economy was struggling, about ready to go under. Biden comes in, takes the sanctions off, why in the world would you want to do that with one of the major exporters of terrorism in the world? And you had their economy on the ropes. Instead, he took the sanctions off, and now they've got anywhere from $80 to $100 billion of oil sales that they're using those monies from to fund Hezbollah and Hamas and all the other terrorism around the world. In fact, we got 25 to 30 terrorist cells in this country right now that we know of. That a lot of them have come across the border as a result of Biden's lousy border and Harris's lousy border policies. And so, yeah, it's a really rough world over there. I know I think was it last week or week before last, the Israelis took out one of the Hamas leaders. And I think, Netanyahu is in a position where he's going to do what it takes to protect his people. They're truly backed against the sea there. They have no place to go except fight. And, people who have empathy for Hamas just stop and think about what really went on whenever they invaded Israel. And that's what they did. They invaded Israel. They came out of Gaza and went into the little towns that surround the Gaza Strip there and raped and pillaged women and children, hung them up, crucified them, killed everything and everybody in their way. It was one of the most horrible genocidal type of activities in the history of man, the way they went at this. It was absolutely horrible what they did. And people seem to forget about that. These people are bad people, and they need to be ended. And Netanyahu knows that if you don't chase these people down and get rid of every last one of them, they will come back, and they will be just as bad and just as vengeful as they were on October the 6th. Or 7th, whatever it was. And so as a result, he is steadfast in his resolve to protect his country and go after whoever attacks it. Hezbollah is a little more well-funded, a little more well-organized, and a little bit more militant than from the standpoint of having more missiles and guns and stuff like that they can throw at Israel. So it'll be a little bit of a different fight when they go after Hezbollah. But it looks like Hezbollah is going to get involved as well. And so we need to be there supporting Israel. There's no doubt, they fall, the whole Middle East collapses, and then we have no allies and then we're really at the mercy of the oil sheiks over there and whatever. But Israel kind of keeps a balance over there for us. It's a really, really important ally, and we need to maintain that relationship.
Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Congressman, we always appreciate your input, and let's hope we get a good turnout on Election Day tomorrow.
Well, yeah.
And it's pretty grim on the stock market scene. Man, oh man. U.S. stock futures fell sharply today as part of the global market sell-off centered around recession fears. As we've been reporting all morning, Japan's Nikkei 225 plunged 12% in its worst day since the 1987 black market crash for Wall Street. Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures dropped 1,285 points. It's a little over 3% following the 611-point loss on Friday. S&P 500 futures down 5.5% after the benchmark lost almost 2% on Friday. NASDAQ lost 5.7% as the big tech stocks got hit hard in the early training, and looks like the fears of a U.S. recession, the main culprit for the global market meltdown after Friday's less than positive July jobs report. Investors are also concerned the Federal Reserve is behind cutting interest rates to bolster the economic slowdown, with the central bank choosing instead to keep the rates highest in 2 decades. Last week, looks like the tech stocks are taking it in the shorts as well. NVIDIA tumbling 9% after going to the session, already down 23% from its big high. Apple created more than 8% after Berkshire Hathaway cut its stake in the iPhone maker in half. And other losers included Tesla, down 7%, Broadcom and Supermicro Computer down more than 9% apiece. So all eyes turn to the market on this day before our Missouri election day, and it does not look too darn positive. Kind of scary for a lot of folks out there.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that it's probably not a great idea to check on your 401k this morning.
As you pointed out earlier, your 401k may have you, I don't know, staying home and cutting the grass if you can afford the gasoline to fire the mower up. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, and I actually just looked at mine, I think, early last week, and was excited at the progress it had made because it had been not making much progress for a long time. So short-lived, I guess.
Well, for a lot of people out there, they remember when the bottom fell out of that market back in 2008. So, yipe. But we have some good things to talk about, even in regard to I know when we asked our kind of stock question we've been floating all morning, what can you do about voter apathy? Scott's response was kind of, be an apathetic voter. We don't need you. Stay home.
Yeah, and I think some of the points he made as to why folks don't vote are valid and maybe things that we can't really do a whole lot about to change. So I think he made some solid points.
Well, especially when he talked about, like we've heard about, it is a challenge in the major metros. You forget that sometimes when we're here in mid-Missouri, and it's rare that you have to wait at the polls for more than, 10 or 15 minutes, even at the peak times. And even with Brianna Lennon, the Boone County clerk, talking about a 30% potential turnout, and Steve Korstmeyer talking about maybe a 35% turnout in Cole County. But he did say sometimes in the big city it is tough for people, especially working people, take a lot of time off and stand in a big line at the polls.
Yeah, and, we're maybe a little spoiled because of our schedules. We come into work early, and so we sort of have the late morning, afternoon off to go vote. And, polling lines are pretty short during those times, but I know our coverage of election results starts at 7 o'clock tomorrow night on KWOS and 93.9 The Eagle. The Stein of Knowledge himself, Scott Faughn, is going to check in with us a little bit here and there throughout our coverage, and we're teaming up with our friends at our sister stations down in Springfield.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So we'll essentially be able to cover the entire state with our election coverage, so looking forward to that.
Yeah,
go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, John and Hannah, yes, team coverage. We're all going to be involved. We're all going to be on air. Looking forward to that. And to Hannah's point, I would say this would apply, John, to Cole County as well, or any county in our listening area. I did cast an absentee ballot last week. I had to cover a court hearing. I think it was the October court hearing. And as soon as I got done, I went over and voted absentee. And yes, there were quite a few people going out of the commission chambers, but very little. It wasn't too bad of a wait. I mean, kind of in and out. The crews did a great job. So I would encourage anyone, if they can, that's what they've set it up for. No excuse absentee voting, and it's certainly the lines will be shorter than what you'll see tomorrow if you have time. I know some people philosophically want to vote themselves on Election Day. That's certainly fine.
It's kind of how I am, right?
Yeah.
The magic of voting is still relatively new to me, I guess, and so I like to do it on Election Day.
Good for you. And continue that because John's talked about this, Hannah, so have I. You got a lot of people, unfortunately. It's not our audience, so our audience, probably 95% of them vote, but there are still a lot of people out there that don't vote, and I don't understand it.
And the fam needs to get ready, because every time we have an election, I like to do a sticker selfie thread on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page. It's usually pretty popular, so everybody keep that in mind as you're out voting tomorrow. Send us those sticker selfies.
Well, Brian, you talked about the absentee, and you talked this morning on the Voicer that you did about the numbers, even breaking some records with some absentee voters going to the polls on the early side in Boone County just last week.
Yeah, that's just right. And I want to say I voted absentee myself it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm just trying to remember when I was in court for October, and it was busy. But I checked in Friday and Saturday, John, with Brianna Lennon. And folks, listen to these numbers. These are absentee voters that cast ballots. 320 on Friday. That is a high. They have never had that many for a registered voters for this no excuse absentee voters. That's just Friday. On Saturday, they opened the Boone County Courthouse or Boone County Government Center again. John, Roger Wilson, 148 voters voted there. And then they also had two different precincts open, one at the Ashland Library on Saturday, one in Centralia. 43 in Centralia on Saturday, 156 people voting in Ashland. So pretty good numbers for Centralia. Ashland higher in my gut feeling. This is just my gut feeling. It's the Bryce Beal, John Martin representative race that really has got a lot of people interested in southern Boone County. And then, of course, the gubernatorial races and everything else. But those are staggering numbers. I expect it's going to be crowded again today. And she is forecasting, John, 25 to 30% turnout for tomorrow. Who knows? I'd like to see that higher, But certainly the absentee numbers are very high.
I'm just glad that Stephanie's not here to rub that in my face, that Ashland had more, people turn out than Centralia did. So fortunate that, Miss Bell's not here.
An interesting factoid. Yeah, an interesting factoid, Brian. You might be able to bear it out. Mm-hmm. Over the years, and we're talking a lot of years of watching and covering elections across mid-Missouri, at least in Cole County, more often than not, 9 times out of 10, as so go the absentee ballots, so goes the final tally more often than not.
More often than not, and I'd say unscientific, John, you and I have been doing it a long time. I would say probably 90%. It might be higher than that. And that would apply, John, to school board races, city council races in this. And I don't know why that is. Now, there are the one exception I can think of is this is a very weird exception, the race between Carl Scala and Roy Lovelady for council a couple of years ago, and one of them had like a 10 vote lead, maybe 15 vote lead. That ended up being a tie. But outside of that, you're absolutely right. In absentee votes, certainly, that's why they're pushing people to vote absentee, the candidates in both parties, to do that. It is interesting, John, on both gubernatorial primaries. On the Democratic side, Mike Hamra, who has ties to Wendy's and well-known, he owns the Wendy's here in Columbia, a lot of Wendy's around the state. He seems to be in a pretty good position right now against the House Minority Leader, Crystal Quaid. If you look at Twitter, Leader Quaid is very popular there, so I'm very interested in that. And on the Republican side, John, you did that voicer for me, and I really appreciate it. Ashcroft, Kehoe, and Eigel, basically, it's too close to call. It's all going to depend on turnout. And the two that come to mind, and you've covered them both, 1992, you had Webster, you had Roy Blunt and Wendell Bailey, and that was contentious, but it wasn't as tight as at least this poll were to be. And I would go back to 1984, John. You remember covering it. John Ashcroft ran against Gene McNary, and that was a pretty heated primary. By the way, Gene McNary is the treasurer, I think, that for John's son Jay that's running for governor. But that
St. Louis County exec back in the day.
Exactly. Years ago, they called it the St. Louis County supervisor, but yes. But it's just, normally you have a front runner and then everybody else. But this is one where you just have 3 genuine candidates who could win. Eigel is surging too. Those numbers for him are coming up. I don't know if it's his ads. He's got a very loyal following. I mean, his folks are very active on our Facebook page and stuff, to say the least. But
yeah,
but
let's not bring back not so fond memories of the straw poll that we did at our debate watch party.
They were not buying the result.
And again, that was unscientific. But again, that was who showed up that night. So but yeah.
There's also a tired producer counting little carnival tickets at 4:00 in the morning.
Yes, and you did a good job. But yeah,
it's good for you. Keeps you out of the bars.
But it should be interesting. And I just, I'm looking forward to our coverage tomorrow night. There's always surprises. And I just, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Big Mike Kehoe rally we found out about, 9:45 this morning at Missouri Farm Bureau. Kehoe supporters, opponents, there's your opportunity. Swing by Missouri Farm Bureau in Jefferson City for a Kehoe rally and, I don't know, hold up your signs, pro or con, and even sign the bus if you want to.
If you can find a place to write your name.
Yeah, the bus has been very filling up. That Farm Bureau will be packed, I'm sure, with commodity groups, et cetera. Senator Eigel and, of course, Mr. Kehoe is in Jefferson City. He's going around the state, kind of a fly around today. Secretary Ashcroft will be at Columbia Regional Airport a little bit later today. He's going statewide, and Senator Eigel will be arriving at Columbia Regional Airport about 9 o'clock. We've already talked to all the candidates, so it's just, we've had them all on. But it's worth mentioning that they are there for voters to meet them. Eigel's at the airport at 9 COU. The other 2 candidates will be there a little bit later today, but Kehoe's going to have a big one at Farm Bureau. Will be interesting to see the rural Missouri turnout. John, you mentioned Missouri Farm Bureau. They have still to this day a lot of clout in rural Missouri. They're throwing their weight behind Mr. Kehoe. But nonetheless, Jay Ashcroft and certainly standing strong on those numbers. And like I said, Eigel definitely is surging. He's within probably, I'd say, the margin of error at this point.
It'll be interesting to talk to our bud Don Luzader, who's based in our Springfield operation, our sister stations down there, because talking to those guys, boy, oh boy, Mike Keogh has really concentrated on Southwest Missouri, made a bunch of campaign stops down there Friday, Saturday through the weekend.
Well, and you're exactly right. He has definitely concentrated on that area. That is, of course, the home turf of the Ashcroft family. And John Ashcroft, two-term governor. He was a Missouri Attorney General, later became U.S. Senator, U.S. Attorney General at one time, too, under the Bush administration. But, Keogh's definitely gone down to campaign in those areas. He's concentrated. Eigel has as well. And, John, what I'd say about that last thing would be this. In a Republican primary, the vote count in Southwest Missouri will drive probably whoever. I think whoever wins Southwest Missouri has a legitimate shot to win the race because that is the Republican stronghold. And it used to be Chesterfield, West St. Louis County. Those areas not nearly as much. In fact, some of those areas have even gone a little bit Democratic. The rural areas and other parts are still key, but that Southwest Missouri vote, I can definitely understand why Keogh's going into those areas. And
Springfield, Joplin to a big degree as well.
And Branson has a big Republican. Those are just very strong Republican areas. Inner city Springfield does have a few blue areas. Ironically, they have 3 Democratic state representatives. But you get outside of Springfield proper, that whole area down there in the Ozarks it's just a Republican stronghold.
It's going to be a very interesting election day. Complete coverage with us here on our Wake Up Mid-Missouri crowd doing the evening routine. And we'll be on the air starting at 7 tomorrow night and right with it till the bitter end, correct?
Up past our bedtimes.
Yes, and we'll be also trying to update the website and
official race is, has more than one candidate in it. The rest of them are all kind of shoo-ins, and that is the race of county assessor. A longtime incumbent, Christopher Estes, being challenged by longtime real estate appraiser Tim Theroff in the mid-Missouri, Jefferson City, Cole County area. And that was been a situation when we talked to Theroff, who got a pretty large donation to his campaign from the National Board of Realtors based out of Chicago. And then Chris Estes, whose kind of claim to fame is he's bumped heads with the politicos, the county commissioners, especially in Cole County, over allegations of not doing the job and him going to bat strongly for higher salaries for his individuals. So that's been a very polarized one. We asked Tim Theroff when we had him on the air if getting that big endorsement from the realtors and the National Board of Realtors would make him beholden to that group. And he said no, he was proud of that race. And on the other side of it, Chris Estes said, well, he didn't want to be beholden to any groups, and his work is and has been as the incumbent to put your tax burden as low as possible on that. So that one's very polarized. They both spend a fair amount of money on political ads and all. Be interesting to see where that one comes out when the smoke all clears tomorrow, Hannah.
Yeah, and it reminds me that sometimes it's the smallest races that have the most drama, and I think this is a prime example of that.
Well, and we go back to our voter apathy thing, and I guess if you want to argue the voter apathy, there's also a lot of candidate apathy out there. When we saw, well, the whole Senate race out of Boone County, it was like, is anybody going to run on the other side, or is this just going to be a Democratic runaway and all? So for a lot of people out there, and you look at the Cole County ballot, and you see presiding commissioners unopposed, the sheriff is unopposed, the county treasurer is unopposed, and even some of our local state representatives, same kind of deal. So for a lot of people out there, I guess you can't just point the fingers at the voters for apathy, but when you don't have candidates on the ballot, that doesn't exactly drive voter turnout either.
Or, you can be a Secretary of State candidate, and there's so many candidates interested in running that it's hard to choose, too. Sort of a feast or famine, I think.
Well, that's one of those deals. You can go to the websites and pull up an actual copy of the sample ballot and read through it because of the two constitutional amendments you will see on the ballot. One of them, if you're a regular voter, you're going to say, didn't we just vote on this like 2 or 3 years ago? And that's the one for the guaranteed funding from the general revenue for the Kansas City Police Department. The other one has a lot more statewide import initially on the top of it, and that is the individual to get tax breaks basically for entities that offer child care in Missouri. So those are a couple of the issues right there. And then like you said, Hannah, there are a whole lot of candidates out there. And we know there are a lot of people out there, and a lot of people who even identify as libertarian or independent, who may not have their mind made up until they literally walk into the polling place tomorrow.
Yeah, and, of course, we are keeping a close eye on election results tomorrow night, starting at 7 o'clock on the radio station. We're doing some statewide coverage with the Zimmer News Network. Something else we're looking at this week, this Saturday, it is the second installment in our Gear Up for Grades school supply drive, and some of our friends from our sister stations will be posted up at Hy-Vee in Columbia, the one at Faughn in Providence. So over there, sort of by Buffalo Wild Wings and Wendy's in that area. They're going to be there from 10 to 2 this Saturday, taking school supply donations for local students. So if you're out and about, maybe want to go drop by and see them. You can also donate online, thanks to our sponsors for the week, Mathnasium of Columbia.
There you go.